Hey everybody, Tekking101 here, and yes, you did read that title correctly. We're doing Bounties 3, Electric Booga-Tree. Hit it! Oh yeah, that's how it's done. I recommend that for anybody that's starting a YouTube channel. Start off all of your videos with a dance number, okay? Because it gets the blood flowing, all right? Let's do this. Okay, so a couple months back, I did the first bounty video, and it was pretty much just an overview of how the bounty system works, all of the most famous ones that we know about. Then I did part 2, which was pretty much addressing all the stuff I forgot in part 1. But I also thought about a mythical third part, where we discuss the Yonko's bounties. And, you know, that's something in and of itself that a lot of people didn't even think existed. I know now, considering what happened last chapter, it's been confirmed. But, you know, for a long time, people were curious. Like, do the Yonko even have bounties? Would the Marines even bother putting a number on their heads? Because the whole point of the bounty system, the whole point of having wanted posters everywhere is like, oh, okay, I'm Jeb the Bounty Hunter. You know, I just graduated from bounty hunting school. I have my trusty, baseball bat of justice here. I'm gonna go out in the world and I'm gonna bust some pirates up and I'm gonna turn them into the Marines and I'm gonna get my reward. Bounty hunting is legal in the One Piece world, and that actually shouldn't be surprising because there's plenty of places in our world where bounty hunting is legal as well. I don't think every single state is legal, but there's quite a few where there are places you could do that in our world. But the problem when you get to a Yonko is they're so ridiculously strong. You know, when you get to Kaido and Big Mom, who basically rule over entire countries and have, like, an army at their disposal, like, what's the point of putting a number on their head? You know, Jeb's not gonna be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go after Big Mom this week. See you guys, I'll be back in a few days with Big Mom's head. You know, it's like, okay, Jeb, you have fun with that. Oh, man, that dude is such an idiot. He's such a simpleton. He's been like that ever since he was a kid, you know? Poor Jeb. I'm looking out for you, buddy. I hope you succeed, Jeb. That's gonna be the new spin-off series for One Piece. Jeb the Bounty Hunter. But no, it's like, how would that even work? Because the only people that would be capable of taking out a Yonko would be another Yonko, for one, which that doesn't work. You can't have a pirate turning in another pirate and getting the reward. Oda even specified that in an SBS. He's like, yeah, some pirate crews do get it in their heads. Like, let's say you have a pirate crew, the collective bounty is 50 mil. And then you have another pirate crew whose collective bounty is 30 mil. And so the 50 mils beat up the 30 mils and they try to turn them into the Marines. The Marines aren't just going to be like, all right, well, you're all dirty, filthy pirates, but yeah, you brought the guy in fair and square, so here's your reward money. No, they're just gonna, you know, capture them when they attempt to turn the other guys in. And even if they manage to escape, they'll just raise their bounty even higher, so other people might think that they're a big haul, right? So, yeah, other pirates or other Yonko turning in the other ones are gonna be out, because that's not how it works. And the only other people that, as an organization, would be strong enough to do that would be the Marines, but I don't think the Marines would really get the reward. I mean, maybe they would, but you'd figure that's their job. So if, like, Admiral Kizaru takes out Blackbeard somehow, and, you know, it was confirmed in the most recent chapter what Blackbeard's bounty was, would Kizaru get the bounty? Would he get the, you know, I guess it's a bonus for him, or I'm guessing he's on a government payroll. He gets some compensation for his duties, but I don't know, because it's their job to do that. I don't know if they would receive the bounty. I guess a parallel you can do in our modern world, because bounty hunting, like I said, does exist in a few places. If a police officer brings in a criminal that does have a bounty on their head, like if they were skipping out on their you know, their bail bond payments or something like that, if they were skipping out for that, and the police officer brings them in, would the police officer receive the bounty that they have? I don't know. So that's the thing with Marines. Now, the only other conceivable way that I could come up with this, and this is something that's even very unlikely, but let's say you're not a member of the Marines, and you're not a Yonko, but you ended up gathering an entire army together. Like, let's say you are part of a kingdom, like you're the king of the Gabadoo kingdom in the New World or whatever, and you're like, all right, I've had enough of Big Mom coming in our island's territory and stealing all of our lovely eggs for her cakes and her pies and her cookies and whatnot. Enough is enough! I, Kim Badadoo of the Gabadoo kingdom, whatever the hell I just said, I hereby decree that my entire army is gonna get together, we're gonna mobilize and attack Whole Cake Island, we're gonna bring her head. And let's say King Gabadoo has like 200,000 men under his employ. And these 200,000 men, they're not all slouches. A lot of them know hockey, maybe some of them even have devil fruit abilities. And then, if they actually manage to succeed, which even under those odds, they might not be, or not even his kingdom. Let's say, you know, all those islands that Big Mom attacked before the Totland arc, you know, like, we're acquiring eggs, we're acquiring fruit, we're acquiring flour. Let's say all those kingdoms got together and they were like, you know what, enough is enough. They mobilized all of their men and they marched right for Totland, and they just have this big epic brawl, okay? If they were to succeed, which they probably wouldn't, but if they were to succeed and they were able to take down Big Mom and haul her fat ass amongst the freaking Marines at Marineford, here you go! Operation Beached Whale is finished! You know, we'll take our bounty now. Then they would give the massive amount of, you know, berries that Big Mom is worth, but they wouldn't just give it to the one person. I think a lot of people were thinking of that, and it was me for a long time, too. Like, I figured it had to only be one bounty hunter. Like, there's no way. I mean, I guess not no way, because there might be a really strong bounty hunter lurking in the One Piece world somewhere that we've just never met before, and he's strong enough. Like, look at Fujitora. Fujitora was just a regular citizen up until the 2-year time skip when he got, you know, in the world government draft. That means that Fujitora was not a member of the Marines. He wasn't a pirate either. He was just some random blind dude hanging out somewhere in the world that had the power of the freaking gravity fruit. And even if he didn't have the gravity fruit, maybe the Marines gave him the gravity fruit after he joined up, he still had incredibly fine-tuned observation hockey and amazing sword skills, way stronger than most people we've seen before. So okay, maybe there is a single bounty hunter somewhere in the One Piece world that could contend with a Yonko. But for the most part, no, you're not going to have that. So it doesn't have to be just one person, though. It could be, like I said, an entire army ganging up on a Yonko and managing to succeed and bring them in. Remember, Kaido was captured a bunch of times. Probably because he was drunk off his ass many of those times, or maybe other times he was like, oh, well, I guess I'll, you know, let you guys bring me in, and then maybe we could figure out how to end this thing I call a life, because I can't figure it out, you know, because that's his hobby, right? Trying to off himself. But he's been captured by the Marines and other pirates, so it's definitely possible. Maybe a bunch of people tried to get together and captured him, and you know, whatever. They would all receive the bounty, then they'd have to split it amongst themselves, you know? But, yeah, okay, so with that being said, though, in the last chapter, we found out what Blackbeard's bounty was, okay? And I actually got it wrong in the review when I was talking about it. I actually missed out on the one of the numbers. It was near the end. I didn't even see it first when I read the chapter. But Blackbeard's bounty is 2,247,600,000. You couldn't shave off that last 600K, could you? Could you, Marines? That was extreme. That was very integral to make sure people knew how dangerous he was. It's like, okay, maybe 2,247,000,000. Nah, that doesn't let people know how dangerous he is. Add on another 600K onto that. A lot of times why bounties arrive at weird numbers is because in their early days as pirates, they usually get like just a little bit of a bounty, not very much of one, but then it just gets added on later. Like, for example, Katakuri's bounty is 1,057,000,000. That probably means, hey, maybe Katakuri's first ever bounty, maybe when he was just a little kid, and he was terrorizing, you know, the seas along with, you know, Daifuku and Oven, who were also little kids. Perospero was a little older than them, and with Big Mom, back when Big Mom only had, like, you know, a handful of youngins. Maybe Katakuri's first ever bounty when he was, like, 5 years old was, like, 7 million. And then it got added later to 37 million. And then it was 107 million, and then 557 million, and then eventually it arrived at 1,057,000,000. Another reason why it's 1,057,000,000 is because if you take the numbers 5 and 6 It could mean Gamu, you know, which is Luffy's fruit, and so the reason Oda did 5 and 7 is it's like he's one-upping Luffy. Okay, so maybe there's something similar with that, like a double meaning to Blackbeard's, but Blackbeard's is even more confusing because Blackbeard, before the whole incident in Marineford when he was a warlord, he didn't even have a bounty. He was the only warlord to have a 0 frozen bounty non-existent before he became one, because he was just like a random member of Whitebeard's crew. He laid low. He made certain not to like stand out too much. Like if he became a division leader of the 2nd division, that's the division he was part of, and I think he was like offered it, but he's like, yeah, I'm not interested in that sort of thing. He would have probably been noticed by the Marines a lot sooner and would have been given at least something on his head. But no, he laid really low in the crew, even though he was part of the Whitebeard crew for a very long time. So by the time he became warlord, it was 0. So I don't know how the Marines arrived at that number, but they did. Now, when it comes to the other Yonko, we have Whitebeard and Shanks here, the ones that I have. For some reason with Whitebeards, they added the question mark, but with Shanks, they were fairly confident in giving Shanks 700 million. These are obviously not accurate numbers, but from what we learned with Blackbeard, and actually through the Viva Ricard data book recently as well, we know for a fact Shanks has a bounty. He does. You know, I think you could figure that, but yeah, it was confirmed in the Viva Ricard book. He does have a wanted poster. We just don't know what it is. And now with Blackbeard's bounty being revealed in chapter 925, I think it's fair to assume all the Yonko have one. Kaido, Big Mom, and of course Whitebeard would have had one as well. It's just that his is of course retired now because he's no longer with us. God, you know, rest your soul, Whitebeard. I guess as well as with Ace too, I suppose. It's interesting to note with the Whitebeard crew though, at least the bounty with Ace was 550 million, which was, compared to the other Yonko commanders, was relatively low, because we had Cracker and Smoothie, who were pretty high up there. I think Cracker's was 700 something million. Haha, yeah, no it wasn't. For some reason, I always think Cracker's bounty is around 700 mil. It's actually 860 million, and just a mistake I always make. I make it quite a bit throughout this video. I do catch on near the end. I start thinking, like, wait, I think Cracker's is actually 800 something instead of 700, but yeah, suffice it to say, though, yeah, it is a little weird that Ace's was so low compared to the other Yonko commanders that we got to see. Smoothies was like 900 something. Katakuri's was over 1 billion. Jack is 1 billion exactly. It's just a little weird that Ace's was so low considering he was the 2nd division commander. But then again, he was relatively new to the crew, so you never know. And also with Marco. Marco's bounty might have been way higher. Marco probably had like, I don't know, 700, 800 mil, probably something around there. So the question on everybody's mind now is, though, taking Blackbeard's bounty as a base, just to kind of ballpark it, like, okay, where are the Yonko bounties lying around? Just a general number, like, okay, 2.2 billion roughly for Blackbeard. What about Kaido? What about Big Mom? Okay. Well, I mentioned this in the review. It depends on how you look at it. If you look at it like Blackbeard is a relatively new Yonko, so that's why his bounty is lowest out of all the Yonko. That's one way of looking at it. Or, because Blackbeard is so dangerous, he ended up getting one of the higher bounties. Now, this is just my opinion going into this territory. Feel free to leave your own perspective on this below. But I'm gonna say that Blackbeard's is not the highest bounty of the Yonko. I'm fairly confident in saying that, just because you have Luffy's bounty, which is currently sitting at 1.5 billion. Blackbeard's is about 2.2 billion, which is only around 700 mil higher. I mean, it's a big gap. It's not nothing. It's not like an insignificant gap. You know, 700 mil, that's a pretty big number. That's like almost an entire cracker. That probably is an entire cracker. That's a pretty expensive crackers. But I don't think that Blackbeard's is like the highest bounty of the Yonko. Luffy's here, you know, and then you have Kaido, Shanks, and Big Mom somewhere in the middle. It just doesn't feel right. It wouldn't feel right for Shanks, like, red-haired Shanks, bounty 2 billion. Like, not bad, but he deserves more. So, you have to remember the whole reason bounties exist and how they're calculated is not based purely on strength. That's a factor, but that's not the whole shebang. It's, of course, how much of a threat you are to the world government, which I'm sure Blackbeard is a huge threat. 2.2, billion around that is nothing to sneeze at. But you gotta remember, Big Mom and Kaido, they've been at this Yonko game for decades, okay? Big Mom was Yonko way back when Roger was sailing the seas. Kaido probably as well around the same time. I like to think Big Mom and Kaido, they're about the same age. Kaido might be a little bit younger, but from what we know about their backstories and everything, yeah, they probably rose to prominence in around the same time. Maybe a difference of a few years, okay? Shanks, of course, if we're going by what we learned in the Viva Ricard data book, he was a Yonko back during when he arrived at Fuchsia Village. So when he first met Luffy and gave him the straw hat and everything, 10 years before the start of the series, that's 12 years before the current storyline right now, after the time skip, of course. 12 years ago, he was a Yonko back then as well. So if we're going along with that, Blackbeard's only been a Yonko. Even if, like, the day after Marineford, he was declared to be a Yonko, which I don't think that was the case. I don't think he was declared a Yonko immediately right after the war. Rather, after he, you know, he had a few months where he gathered his crew together. He had all the level 6 prisoners. They started to have a lot of high-profile crimes in the New World. Started gathering a bunch more people on his side, getting a few more ships under his employ. And probably the Payback War helped a lot. It was, honestly, I would be fine with saying that after the events of the Payback War, that's when the Marines declared him a Yonko officially. That's when the world started to really fear him, okay? When it's like, all right, he's got the Gura Gura no Mi, he's got the Yami Yami no Mi, he's got all these level 6 prisoners. He had a pretty high bounty. Maybe right after Marineford, maybe Blackbeard was issued a bounty similar to Luffy's current one, like probably around 1.5 billion, right? So he was considered like a pseudo-Yonko at that point. And of course, they're looking for a void to fill for Whitebeard, but then give it about a year where he amassed all this power and then took out the other Whitebeard pirates. That was like probably the moment when the entire world at large was like, okay, yeah, he's a Yonko now. It's official. He is somebody we really need to fear. But he still is gathering power. You know, he has an island under his control, the Beehive Island, the Pirate Utopia, so to speak. But that's nothing on the same level as what Big Mom has with Totland. Probably not even with Kaido, because Kaido, from what we understand so far, Kaido only really rules over Wano, but he's been at that for 20 years. Okay, and Wano is isolated from the rest of the world. It's got so many strong, heavy-hitting samurais and all that stuff. It's got the Shogun. It's got all that crap, all right? I'm not saying Blackbeard couldn't eventually arrive at the place in his life where he's got, you know, entire countries under his rule and all these strong people, you know, but he's not quite there yet. He's had a really good, you know, start, you know, getting, amassing all the devil fruit powers and everything, but yeah. So, if we're just gonna go with the idea that his is one of maybe the lowest out of the Yonko, another way you could look at it is that's why Oda revealed it first. That's why he showed Blackbeard's off first, because his was the lowest. Okay, so, let's talk, Kaido, and let's talk Big Mom. Because there's so many comparisons between the two, and because they probably started around the same time, I'm going to say that their bounties are about the same. Alright, I think that might be a good way to put it. Also, you might say Kaido's might have gotten hurt a little bit because he's been captured so many times. So maybe they take that into consideration. Like, yeah, we can't execute him, but in terms of capturing, we've done that plenty of times, so maybe we should, like, lower his bounty, get it around there. So, I don't want to get into astronomically high numbers here. I think Shanks has the highest bounty. Out of all the Yonko, if I had it my way, Shanks would have the absolute highest bounty out of the Yonko. Not the highest bounty in the series, because that's pretty much been stated to be Dragon at this point. Dragon, of course, he was stated to be the most wanted man in the world. Go figure, if you're going to be considered the most wanted man in the world, I would assume you also have the highest bounty. And I think those go hand in hand there. Maybe not, but I can't really say it not happening that way. So yeah, if we're going with Yonko, it would go Shanks, then like Big Mom Kaido about there, you know, and then Blackbeard on the bottom, and then Luffy after that, who's considered a fifth emperor, a pseudo-emperor, so to speak. Okay. So, I don't want to go too ridiculous with this, though. I don't want to be like, Shanks bounty, 1 trillion berries! Maybe that was Rogers. I don't know. But I would be comfortable with Kaido's and Big Mom's lying around 3 billion. 3, maybe 4 billion. Something like that. You want to keep it within the realm of, like, oh shit, that's a huge number, but not so ridiculous where it's like Blackbeard's bounty is 2.2 billion, Kaido's bounty is 9.7 billion. You don't want to have it like that big of a gap, but you need to have maybe a little bit of a gap there. So maybe in between 3 to 4 billion, that's where Kaido and Big Mom would lie. Maybe Big Mom's would be like 3.3 billion, Kaido's would be 3.5 billion. I would be happy with those numbers. I would be fine with that. I got a text message. I got the Kim Possible ringtone. And with Shanks, I would be more content with him having a much higher one, maybe in the realms of like 5 billion. Okay, Shanks, you gotta look at everything that Shanks is doing, alright? He's a pupil of Roger, sailed on his ship, learned everything from the King of the Pirates himself and the Dark King himself. He's been at this for over a decade at least, maybe longer, but at least over a decade, 12 years or so. You know, he clashed with Kaido. That's something you gotta take into consideration. This dude clashed with Kaido before Marineford, who is a dragon, by the way, and they managed to come out of that unfreaking scathed. Not a scratch on him. They had a run-in with Kaido. Very next day, they're at Marineford. They show up fresh as freshly picked daisies, ready to fight. You didn't see a drop of blood on Shanks. You didn't see them all bandaged up from the epic battle. Like, we just fought a dragon yesterday. Oh, well, I guess we're ready to go. No, they look perfectly picturesque. Absolute great health. So, I'm not sure what the hell Shanks did, but if Kaido really was there and he went all dragon apocalypse on their asses and they managed to get away from him without, unscathed while also deterring him, because that was the whole reason Shanks stopped him. It's like, I'm going to prevent you from interfering with the war, stopped Kaido and like, all right, now let's go end this war. That's what they were doing. So I think putting Shanks up there, 5 or 6 billion maybe. I like 5, because 5 is like a good, even number. Like, red-haired Shanks, bounty, 5 billion. I'm like, okay, magnifique, beautiful, right? Now, with that being said, then we're going to have Dragon. All right, now, I know probably many of you at this point might want Dragon's bounty to like, well, let's just round it up. Let's make it 10 billion. I still think that might be, I don't want it to be that high. I don't want it to be that high. I would honestly have Dragons be maybe slightly higher than Shanks. So, he does have the rank of the most wanted man in the world, but it's not like by a wide berth, by a wide margin. More than anything, the Marines are concerned about Dragon, and the world government, more importantly, is concerned about him because of what he did with the Revolutionary Army and how he's gathering all this steam. That's another reason maybe why they don't give Sabo that high of a bounty. I thought Sabo's was being a lot higher than 602 million. But maybe they figure, like, Dragon is the head of all this. He's the mastermind. He's the one that, got everybody together. If we could just take that son of a bitch out, if we can get rid of Dragon, then the rest of the Revolutionary Army would just fall apart. And it very well might. I mean, yeah, you have the Revolutionary Army commanders that are really strong. You have Sabo that has a good head on his shoulders. But, maybe it's the strength of Dragon. And maybe he has like a really strong, like the storm fruit, or the weather no mi, or the wind no mi. Whatever he's got at his disposal, he's really strong and his message resonates with the entire world. It's just, he's a symbol more than anything. I just watched Fantastic Beasts, Where to Find Them, and The Crimes of the Grindelwald last night. Crimes of Grindelwald, not the Grindelwald, but you know what I mean. Like, that's kind of similar. He is the image. He is the one they rally around. You know what I mean? And if you get rid of him, then there's still interest in a rebellion, but it loses its organization capacity. So that's maybe why the Dragon is their number one concern, okay? Get rid of him and you're set. So if we're going to set Shanks at like 5 bill exactly, then maybe Dragon would be like 5.1 billion, something like that. 5 billion, 100 million. 5 billion, 116,320,000. 0.5. Whatever. Just a number that's slightly higher than Shanks, so he could be considered the highest, but not by much. So, something like that. It would be fine with. So, what about Whitebeard? What about Whitebeard's bounty, right? Remember, when Whitebeard was still alive, Dragon was still considered the world's, most wanted man, okay? Because when we first got introduced to Dragon, it was right after Ennie's lobby. Whitebeard was still active. I wouldn't say he was the picture of health, because he was all hooked up to the medical machines. Like, give me more medicine! You mean sake? Damn straight! Glug, glug, so that's how he was. But I would consider Whitebeard higher than Big Mom and Kaido. I would put him probably up there around, nearing the 5 billion mark. Or, hey, if you want to look at it like this, let's say Whitebeard was higher than Shanks before the time skip. Well, back when he was alive, aka back when he was still had a beating heart, or a heart, because, Akainu it was a big hole. But anyway, yeah, let's say, okay, he had like a 5... okay, if that's the case, we're going to have to scale up Dragon. Okay, before the time skip. Dragon, 5.5 billion. Whitebeard, 5.3 billion. Shanks, 5 billion. Probably around that kind of general region. All right, let's go with that there. Because Whitebeard, they got to think of the threat level here. Yeah, he has the power to take out the entire world if he wanted. He could summon earthquakes whenever he wants, giant tsunamis. He could wreck the entire place if he wanted to. But he's a smart dude. He doesn't do it, because if he did that, then everybody would die. Not the kind of guy Whitebeard was. I mean, you piss him off, he'll destroy your entire island. Yeah, sure enough. But he's not going to just go crazy and, do the full destructive capabilities with his fruit. He's not going to do that kind of thing. So that probably all right, let's, because if he was like that and he's just wrecking the entire world, you don't even have time to get together to hold a meeting to determine his new bounty. The world is falling apart. It's freaking Ragnarok out there before we even have time to issue the bounty poster. You know what I mean? So yeah. I know this might be sort of, I don't want to say controversial, because I've been kind of seeing this around. A lot of people don't think Blackbeard is the end-all, be-all, absolute highest bounty, because, I think it can get much higher than that, but I think some people might consider, it's oh, well, maybe it might not be the highest, maybe Shanks would be higher, but maybe Kaido and Big Mom's bounty would be slightly lower, maybe around the 2 billion mark, something like that, whereas you have the Yonko commanders, which, aside from Ace, as I've stated, usually hover around the billion spot. Cracker, 700 something, or was his 800 or something, whatever. Anyway, wherever Crackers was at. And then you had, Smoothies, that was 900 something, and then, of course, you had Katakuri, who was 1 billion, Jack, who was 1 billion. I'm sure we're going to find out King and Queen's bounty, the other calamities on Kaido's crew, they're probably going to be Queen the Plague, 1 billion, 400 million, King the Conflagration, 1 billion, 700 million, maybe something like that. Well, even that might be kind of a little bit high. Maybe they might be between 1 billion, 1.5 billion. Maybe that would be comfortable for the commanders. But, yeah, this is basically just getting into a numbers game at this point, so I'll leave it at that. You guys can comment below, where do you think all the Yonkos lie? You don't have to give me an exact number. You don't have to say, Tekking, I'm telling you right now, Kaido's bounty, 3.75 billion. Exactly. You just give me a general range, in between this and this. That's probably where Kaido's is at. I would feel like that would be an appropriate number there. So yeah, let me know about that below. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking101 signing out. And wish Jeb the Bounty Hunter good luck. Jeb, man, he just started. He needs to get a big break, okay? I believe in you, Jeb. I believe in you.